Introduction. Uh, Hello, my name is
Yeah.
DLIs. I go by Dez. Um, I'm a mother, author, loser, and local insane person, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm Elliot, and I'm also insane. Like on paper, like if you want my stats, like sports people have stats. My stats are like hospitalized 20 times, been on every antipsychotic approved in the United States. Like batting averages.
Yeah, you're like the Babe Ruth of insane people.
I am, and I should get to have a collectible card game too.
Exactly, yeah. You walk around with an entire medicine cabinet.
I do.
You do. I'm on your standard antidepressants and anxiety medication. Let me try to read the label here. Um, I, unlike our esteemed host here, have only been an inpatient once, but it was the most fun I've ever had in Texas, so that's something. um, Hydroxyzine for anxiety,
Oh,
and
that's the antihistamine.
yeah, every day I wake up and take my pills and try not to kill myself, and judging by my presence on this podcast, I haven't succeeded yet, so.
Batting averages. I actually have a new pill case that was way too expensive and totally worth every penny because it's completely made of metal and it like clicks into place. You can just dump out your whole like my nightmares. I can dump out like in one motion.
What color is it? Is it pretty?
It comes in lots of colors.
Nice. Does it come in lavender?
I think it does.
Had a house for context for the people that are listening. We were living in Texas. At the time, we got a three-bedroom, before our lives fucking imploded. Uh, and so he was living with us for a time because he was had his own mental issues, and we were very sympathetic to the plight of somebody that was obviously depressed, obviously had nowhere to go, like needed help. And so he started seeing this girl who already had two kids and decided that he wanted to adopt a cat on top of it. And we're thinking, oh, he went to a shelter somewhere. He brought this cat in from a shelter. Sure, you can bring her home. Just what gender is it? Does it have its shots? Like, what are the sex organs? Is it male or female? And she was like, I don't know. And the fact that he responded, I don't know to all these questions probably should have been considered a red flag, but we really weren't thinking clearly. And then he brings home like this 8 month old kitten that's covered in fleas. And it was our responsibility for the next 3 weeks to get her flea dipped and properly medicated. And the entire house looked like Scarface's penthouse because at the time we had two other cats. We still do. We got the three of them now. And obviously the fleas went fucking everywhere. So for a month, the entire fucking house looked like Scarface's penthouse. Um, there was fucking powder everywhere as far as the eye could see. That was a fun adventure. And then, like a year and a half later, he decided he couldn't take care of her anymore, so he decided to just dump her in the street. And then Christmas Eve of that year, she came back, and I'm like, okay, this is destiny. We're not letting this baby go again. And I didn't.
My cat, she's a perfect cat, but couldn't find anyone. She was up for adoption for 3 years, and they
Yeah,
couldn't find anyone who was even remotely interested in her. So
that's
I
tough.
adopted her, and they gave me $50.
Holy shit.
They're
Is it just that people aren't into older cats, or they just,
not.
yeah. Because knowing her, I know it wasn't something about her personality. She's like a huge pile of mush. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't an aggressive animal at all. Like, I don't understand the leaving her behind. All you know. Well, I guess
Well, suitable for our podcast.
definitely.
Her original owner actually committed suicide, and he actually survived, but he didn't return home after that. He went into like institutional care.
Okie doke.
Um, and so they tried to throw Taro out, but she doesn't like the outdoors. So she hid in the garage, and they had her up for adoption for 3 years. And then when I was interested in her, they gave her a flea bath and drove her to my apartment, even though she was out, I think, in the desert. They let me keep her for a week, and they were like, if you don't like her, we'll take her back. So I kept her, obviously, because after a week, we bonded on the first night. But
Yeah.
after the week was over, we were clearly very bonded to each other. And they gave me $50 as the thank you for adopting her.
Holy shit, you get a cat and $50.
Yeah, it
What a
was the
fucking
best deal I ever made.
and you're both traumatized, so clearly you were a perfect fit. I would describe the best time I ever had in Texas as being in the fucking mental hospital. And that's an insane statement in and of itself, but it really had nothing going on for me. We had our three cats. My husband was in and out of the house due to work. We never really made any friendships that really stuck. Everybody was always in our lives, out of our lives, in our lives, out of our lives, and we couldn't really like find anybody we really gelled with too much. And so my cats were my only friends, and we were in a pretty stable place at the time financially and really wanted kids. So we decided, okay, let's have kids. We have a roof over our heads. We got plenty of money. It'll be fine. And then come like my 7th month pregnant, he lost his hearing and he works at a call center, and so that wasn't great. And so he lost his job basically. He was on unpaid medical leave for who knows how long. All of our finances were drained, and this went on for a little over a year. And so my son was a year old, and I was struggling with finding a job. I kept putting in applications and getting denied, or getting to the second interview and getting denied, or passed over for somebody else. And it was just so goddamn upsetting because, like a lot of people in our age range, like I went and I got a college education. We were told by our parents that if you go and you get a college education, it's going to qualify you for a lot more opportunities. And those opportunities in New York, where we're both originally from, and in Texas just didn't come. I mean, I would get work here and there, but it was never solid money. It was like freelance writing. I've worked in pop culture writing. I've written for finance, uh, financial publications. I did a bunch of odd jobs in that regard, but I never really found anything that stuck. And so, in the final hour, I like to call it, we had flooding, like raw sewage type flooding in the house, and they had to tear down all the walls and get it clean, and nobody ever came back to repair it. And the cost for the trash was going up. We had no money, and we had a negative bank balance, and I was just ready to lose my mind because the trash was piling up. There was no way to get rid of it. We didn't have any toiletries, soap, food. Like, Snap was out the window. I lost the disability benefits that I was getting. I'm medically disabled. I have cerebral palsy. I'm primarily a wheelchair user, and so work was just not coming because whenever a prospective employer would invite me in for an interview, they would see me and just be immediately unimpressed. And so, like, in the final hour, I finally get a job, and I have this great interview with this dude who basically hires me on the spot. And that's insane because that's never happened to me before. And it wasn't for anything that I went to school with. For anybody listening, I was a journalism major in college. I have a BA in journalism and communications with a minor in creative writing and literature. Hence the novelist part of my fucking little repertoire at the beginning of this. Um, and you know, it was for a call center position. It was for sales. It was something lower level. So somebody finally hired me on the spot with quote unquote no experience. I was thrilled. Um, I was like, okay, this is a long shot. The mortgage is piling up. We're in active foreclosure. This house is a mess, but I'm going to get my shit together. I'm going to go to work and I'm going to pull this family out of debt. Like, if it kills me, I will do this. And I show up, and this man has the audacity to tell me, I'm sorry, you failed your background check. You're not even allowed in the building. I told them after the fact because the background checks were handled by a different company, which sounds sketchy as fuck. And so I called the different company that supposedly handles the background checks. And from what the people that handled the background checks told me, student debt, credit card debt, and the whole fucking issue with the mortgage was basically why I was denied a job. So you're not hiring me because I'm broke and clearly fucking need a job. At this point, I'm still at the fucking office. They're still trying to force me out of the building. I'm going, sir, we don't have any food. They're gonna cut our power. Our house is in active foreclosure. This was my last opportunity to help my family. I need this job. I don't understand why I don't have this job. You told me 2 weeks ago that I had the job. And meanwhile, I'm not saying this calmly. I'm crying. I'm hyperventilating. My face is fucking red. I probably look insane. Um, and I tell him, sir, if you can't give me this job and you can't tell me why I'm not allowed to have this job, can you at least get me the number for a crisis hotline? Because I don't feel safe with myself right now. Like, I am in dire straits, and this is my one shot at fixing things, and I can't fix things. So you're going to need to help me help myself. And so he says, call 911. And so I call 911 and I say, I'm going to kill myself tonight if somebody doesn't do anything. And they do the whole spiel, like, where are you? What's going on? And I have no idea where I am because I don't have the fucking address memorized. I wrote it down to put it in the GPS, and that was about it. So I'm fucking frazzled. My mind is fucking racing. My entire life is fucking falling apart. My kid's in the backseat of our car because he's one at this point. We don't live near anybody that can take the baby, so we had to take him with us to get in the car and go down to this job and fucking try to make something of myself. And I'm freaking the fuck out. I'm like, can you just give me a minute? I just need to. I live like 15 minutes down the road. I'll give you the address to the house when I can. And they're like, okay, just stay on the phone. And I do. And they call the police, and the policeman is like, listen, I lost my brother to suicide. You don't want your husband to find you like that. I can take you somewhere to get help. And so an ambulance arrives, and they drive me to the hospital, and they cuff me to the gurney because they deal with a lot of people that are violent and they don't want to take any risks and whatever. And so they drive me to, I don't know if it necessarily qualifies as an inpatient facility, but they drive me to some type of place in a hospital, right? Where other people with various like mental ailments are being kept. I got into a cot. I sat there for a while. I was on my phone for the majority. I had a pretty decent chicken fried steak, if you can believe it, because they have chicken fried steak at the hospital.
Oh
Um,
man.
they wouldn't give me a knife because give knife to Looney who wants to die, not good results. And so I basically stayed there the entire night. I was hearing stories about the people that were coming and going. There was this girl in the room opposite me who was in her early 20s, who was developmentally disabled and had some other type of psychological issues, and she was literally eating her own poop. Um, Fortunately, I didn't see that. She was behind a door. She was like in a storage closet type hospital room space that they had, separate to everybody. Um, and there was this other chick who was apparently supposedly eating nuts out of a garbage can in her neighbor's yard and was brought in. And so I spent from the hours of 12 p.m. to 5 a.m. in that place until I finally spoke with a psychiatrist who figured out where I was supposed to be, in his professional opinion. And so they picked me up. I was known only by a number. I was 10. There were numbers all over the room, marking the different patients that had come in, and I was number 10. And the nurse at the front desk, the night nurse, was like, Ten's very polite. She's very sweet. She's very well behaved. Seems well spoken. Pretty intelligent. She mainly just cries. And I decided that if I ever wrote a book about my life, a nonfiction piece, it would be called Ten Just Cries. And so they send me to a behavioral health hospital with other people with severe clinical depression. And I spend a good 3 or 4 days there. I meet a lot of like-minded people, and it's honestly fucking great because this is the first time in like literal years that I've had like an actual meaningful conversation with somebody. Because when you're in a family unit, you kind of get stuck in your role and you kind of get stuck in a rut. And my life was both literally and physically in shambles. Like I was living in a home that didn't even look like a home. We didn't have walls. There were no walls. The walls were fucking missing. It was filthy. So I felt like an animal half the time living in that house. And I was here trying to support a baby. He was looking for work. We had nothing. I wasn't even sure that I was going to come home to a solid meal when I got back. So I was basically in the habit of just buying myself time. And they would feed me meals, and I would be too full of anxiety to even eat. So I would like maybe subconsciously try to like store the food for later. So I would only eat like a quarter of, let's say, pizza they gave us for dinner. I would only eat like a quarter of that. I was just in a state of mind where I couldn't eat because I couldn't eat at home because we didn't have anything to fucking eat. And then when I got there, I felt so insecure about, okay, how much food do I have for the day that I would just avoid eating and kind of power through on fucking root beer and juice and whatever else other liquid they would give me. So, the hospital staff was very kind and semi-nurturing. The night staff kind of sucked, but the hospital staff was pretty great. They weirdly had pretty good pot roast, which you don't fucking expect because I was trying to like avoid anything that seemed, I guess, like restaurant food because they had like a tilapia and some kind of stew and like the pot roast, and I would always avoid those because I figured, you know what, they're probably better at burgers than they are at any of that shit. And so my last night there, I finally caved and ordered the pot roast, and the pot roast was pretty damn good. So if you're ever in a mental hospital in South Texas, fucking the pot roast is pretty good. And I met a lot of people that were lovely and sweet and promised that we'd keep in touch. The way I describe it was like summer camp. Like by the time that somebody was ready to be discharged and was ready to leave and go back to their lives, like people were hugging and crying and braiding each other's hair, and like we had common hour at night where we would all just hang out and fucking watch TV and talk and bullshit about our lives and about the people in them. And I met a lot of really great people that I'm confident I'm never gonna see again, but they gave me my second wind.
By and
Yeah.
large, most of the contacts that I made, I never called that person. But a
Yeah.
couple of times I ran into that person, on campus, like Dylan in the poem Dirty Dill.
Yeah.
He worked in Westside Dining at Stony Brook.
Mm,
Um, so I ran into him occasionally. And one of the people in my department who worked in another lab that focuses on autism as well. Um, we were hospitalized at the same time.
that's nuts. No pun intended. But your life is full of fucking crazy coincidences, man. It's like almost inspiring how fucked up your life is.
I'm hitting new highs.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, my the point of my story was I really hope that none of these people are dead because I kept in touch with one of them for a pretty solid 2 months of like every day, every week communication, and then we just stopped talking. She just completely ghosted me. And the one other reason for her avoiding contact is that she's just left this plane of existence. So I actually like to think that she fucking ghosted me. I like
That's
to think
fair.
that she's out there living like a great fucking life. she found some new fucking adventures, a new friend, a new outlook on life, and she's doing okay. Because the last I heard, she was moving closer to the main city where we lived in Texas to take care of her grandparents, and she was like really close to her grandparents, and they weren't doing well. So I hope against like God, Cthulhu, Santa Claus, whoever the fuck exists that runs shit, took care of her and she isn't, not here anymore because being ghosted is a much more pleasant alternative to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was a really sweet human being and I'm really thankful to know her for the 2 or 3 days that I knew her. And the crazy thing is I was only in there for 5 days. It felt like I had known like half of those people my whole fucking life. And I asked this dude, this gay kid who reminded me of my cousin, he was about 19 years old. He was born in Russia. He was picked up after he tried to drink himself to death at a bar because you're obviously visibly queer and you're in Texas and you're born of Russian immigrants. So I can't imagine your life is too fucking easy. So you can only imagine what led him to that place, which led him to the hospital. And I turned to him at one point during dinner and I'm like, okay, how long have we fucking both been in here? Have we been in here like a day or like 2 days? Has it been like a week? And he just looked at me and shrugged. It was
Yeah,
like
that seems pretty accurate.
it was like being like one of the lead characters in a science fiction novel when any time a new person comes in, we're like, holy shit, welcome, because we recognize them as new immediately and we try to like protect them from themselves because that's an immediate instinct where somebody is lost, somebody has hid themselves away from the outside world. We gotta like bring them in and show them that this place isn't as bad as they probably think it is. And
I've
so we have
actually made that argument with people that instead of paying lots and lots of money to make new suicide hotlines, we could just, cut out the middleman and make people feel like they're allowed to go to the hospital and it's not going to be that bad.
exactly, yeah. And I spoke to a friend after getting out of there, and I sounded so much better than I had the few days prior that I was gone. And he's like, "You sound like me after I got back from my cruise last year." And I'm like, "Yeah, it kind of feels like that. I had a great time. We talked. I was treated like a fucking human being. I got to eat. um, so yeah, it felt like a vacation." And the fact that the closest thing that I've had to a vacation in however many years it had been, like 7, 8 years, if not longer, was at a fucking mental institution. Sounds pretty goddamn depressing, but you know, when I say that being there gave me my second wind, it really fucking gave me my second wind because I finally had some hope. And I finally felt like people actually gave a damn whether I lived or died. And I hadn't felt that in a long time.
Yeah, most of my hospitalizations, I would say, were good. There were a few that were a bit dicey, particularly the ones that were in New York, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Before I started being hospitalized a lot at UCLA, um, people at hospitals on Long Island told me that they were gonna mandate medications for me under Kendra's law, and you really do not want that.
And why is that?
Well, you have to basically get put on a long-acting injection so that they can note that you came to your injection and you got it. Otherwise, it would be really difficult to ascertain if somebody has stopped taking their medication.
Yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant. It's
No, and
giving
these depot injections, they're a bit painful as well.
Yeah, it's giving me like old movie vibes where somebody's literally having some sort of mental breakdown and they come in with a shot and hold them down.
I mean, they do that. That
Yeah,
that is reality.
yeah,
But this is like an outpatient law.
yeah,
That's the difference.
That's
You know,
pretty
I
fucking
have
crazy.
been given Haldol and Ativan injections because I was riled up. And
Mm.
was that appropriate in my case? Probably not, but whatever. But those are short-term injections. These are depot injections, which means they like leave a deposit of the medication that slowly gets absorbed by your muscles.
That sounds actively disturbing.
Well, it's really annoying because if you don't show up for your depot injection, then they send the cops to your house. So,
Sounds fucking annoying. Anyway, that hospital had some pretty goddamn good pot roast. I mean, it looked like a foot, but it tasted fucking incredible.
after not eating for a while, I mean, anything could taste good. I also ordered the same tray for breakfast every morning, and if there were deviations, I would call back down to the kitchen and get another tray sent up, even if it was like a small, like, difference.
They gave me something for anxiety at one point. I have no idea what it was. I didn't ask questions. I just fucking took what they gave me because I was so desperate to fucking not feel miserable for any degree of time. And I kept asking for something for sleep, and they, I guess, quote unquote, experimented and gave me something for anxiety. And I woke up like 5 a.m. fucking in the middle of an active fucking breakdown. My body felt fucking heavy. I felt like I was gonna die. I couldn't fucking sit up properly. It was like my body was fighting me. And I'm already fucking physically disabled. So I already have a lot of physical difficulty with moving and like adjusting my body in a position that I feel comfortable. And so I woke up out of a dead sleep, fucking freaking the fuck out because I couldn't move. It was like sleep paralysis, but like somehow worse.
I
Um,
wouldn't be surprised if they gave you Ambien. I have taken Ambien only as an inpatient, and when they gave it to me, I would be like tripped out. Like I would see fractals, and I had hallucinations of like the shadows moving, and
yeah.
like it was really trippy and not at all conducive to going to sleep.
No, not at all. I mean, it knocked me out like a motherfucker when I first took it. I was in a longtime friend's wedding. Like, this woman was one of my oldest friends, and I was in her wedding. And the thing about being in her wedding was that I was in her wedding alongside 15 other women, 5 other women. So it was a huge, huge bridal party. And she had to get everybody ready for like a noon wedding ceremony. And so we all had to get up at 3 and just get our asses to the hotel and get our hair and makeup done. And so by the end of the evening, when we all finally got back home to where we were staying or where we were living or wherever, like it was 3 a.m. So I had been awake from 3 a.m. on, let's say, Tuesday to 3 a.m. on fucking Wednesday. And so it was a full, like, 24 hours of constant activity and no fucking sleep. So I pretty much don't even remember closing my eyes, and I was just out for another 12 hours. And that effect was comparable to being on whatever medication they gave me for sleep that night because I'm not a heavy sleeper. I don't sleep well generally. I am a very anxious person. I'm a very depressed person. I have a lot of personal trauma. My brain refuses to turn off a lot of the time. And so falling asleep like that is a rarity. And most of the time, it's a blessing. And so when they gave me those drugs, I went to the bathroom really quick. I turned around, I plopped my butt back in the chair, I wheeled myself to the cot, I plopped into the cot, and I was immediately dead to the world. And then, not 5 hours later, I woke up and just sheer terror with no discernible source. Like, I was just utterly fucking terrified. I couldn't calm down. I was cold sweats. Shit was moving. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I remember calling out to my roommate at the time because there were 2 people to a room, and I had just met this woman the other day. I'm like, Kim, and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, Kim, you need to help me sit up because I can't fucking move. I can't. What's happening, Kim? You need to help me sit up. And so she helped me sit up. And she's like, you okay? I'm like, I don't know. And then I finally calmed down and I woke up at like the 9 a.m. wake up call. And I went down like for breakfast. And this kid, John, and I call him a kid because I'm in my 30s. This kid was like 20, 19, 20 years old. Um, and he was there for more or less the same reasons. You know, family history of alcoholism, ran into some trouble, fell into a dark place, got there. So he walked into the communal area. He was like, "Yo, did anybody else feel fucking weird last night?" And I'm like, "What do you mean weird?" And he's like, "I woke up in the middle of the fucking night. I freaked the fuck out. I was freaking the fuck out. I had no idea why, but I was just fucking scared, like scared shit. Like I don't know why, but I felt fucking terrified." I'm like, "Holy shit, yeah, okay. So I'm not a fucking freak."
Suffice it to say, insomnia is pretty common on inpatient units. So there are some units where the doctor has a particular predilection towards a particular medication. Like some people love their trazodone. Some people use shit like Ambien, which is a Z drug. Um, p- People do use like hydroxyzine, which is closely related to Benadryl.
Yeah,
It's antihistamine.
yeah,
And then there are people who will prescribe something like lorazepam, which is Ativan, but usually that's not a first line approach because benzodiazepines are addictive and they don't necessarily improve sleep quality.
no,
I take temazepam, which is like a last resort.
yeah,
It's a benzodiazepine, but it's much more sedating than even Ativan. And if you've been on Ativan, you know Ativan's pretty sedating. But temazepam is even more so, and it is considered supposedly to have a high abuse potential.
mm.
Probably because it's used as a date rape drug as well as for its severe insomnia.
I used to look at the car when I was in the hospital. I used to look at the cars on the street outside, just on the highway. People going to work, people coming from work, people going out to eat, whatever. And I would sit there and I would think, how the fuck is everybody not in here right now? Like, how the fuck do regular people just go about their lives without having this ever happen to them? Like, why the fuck does not everybody need one of these fucking grippy sock vacations at some point in their lives? Like it's unfathomable to me that the vast majority of people wouldn't go through something that would require a hospital stay.
Yeah, I mean, I used to find it pretty interesting. And, I've been hospitalized approximately 20 times. So for me, this isn't really that alarming. Even my family, they're like, oh, well, you gotta get the bolts tightened. And most people honestly have no idea what it's like to be on an inpatient unit. The qualification I'll make to that is that people who have been in prison probably have a pretty good idea of what to expect. I have been, handcuffed behind my back, by cops because they're bringing you down to the hospital. There's really not much reason for that in my case. Like, I've never been violent, and because of my physical disability, I'm not really able to run very fast or far.
Yeah.
And if you were worried about me eloping, handcuffing my hands seems like it's less effective than handcuffing my feet.
No, I get what you're saying because, you know, I don't know. We're gonna get a lot of millennial listeners, knowing us probably. Like, who else would want to listen to two people in their 30s, but other people in their 30s? The Naruto run was very popular when we were in middle school, so people ran with their hands behind their backs for fun.
I have a lot of like inpatient unit fun facts. Did you know that it's still legal in the United States to give cigarettes to inpatients who may not even have brought their own cigarettes?
No, I didn't.
In California, it's still, to my knowledge, legal and practiced in some of the counties around LA. Like, I think I went to a hospital in Covina where this was the case. And they would give you these really cheap cigarettes made with cigar tobacco. They're really honestly kind of nasty, but very strong. So I
Mhm.
guess it kept people calm.
Yeah.
Is there any last words you would like to say?
So I wrote a book. It's a paranormal romance slash dark fiction novel. It's about vampires. Um, Here's the synopsis of my debut novel, Nightingale, by D.L. Eyes. 19-year-old Tabitha Barton is food, a nightly meal for a piggish vampire, her brother RJ. As Rob's Nightingale, a near immortal being meant to sustain him, Tabby's purpose is clear, painful, and often horribly violating. Living alongside Alexandria, the Dampier who murdered their human father, and his own Nightingale, the annoyingly chipper Viola, she and Rob make up two parts of a twisted makeshift family. Pushed to her breaking point, Tabitha runs, finding friendship, acceptance, and real love in the unlikely forms of an amicable ex and a former high school rival. But as unforeseen consequences threaten her new life, Tabitha realizes that severing family ties may have come at a deadly cost. And it's about vampires. It's extremely sapphic. Um, it takes advantage of the rivals to lovers trope. I understand you're probably tired of the TikTokification of books, but you need to learn to package things in a succinct way. But basically, it deals with sexual assault. It deals with sexuality. It's rooted in a lot of traumas that I myself have personally experienced, and it would really mean a lot to me if you would pick it up. It's available on Amazon. Again, the title is Nightingale, and the author is D.L. Eyes. D.L. Eyes as in Eisner, E-I-S.
We are going to transition to me reading an essay that I published in 2016. It's called Everything Else. But first, I would like just to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Elliot Gavin Keenan. I got my PhD in psychology from UCLA in 2023. Um, I currently work as a postdoctoral fellow at Drexel University, like has been touched upon. I have bipolar disorder, autism, and ADHD, and I've been hospitalized about 20 times, which really says a lot by itself. Um, so here is my essay. Everything Else by Elliot Gavin Keenan. Mozart was crazy, flat fucking crazy. Batshit, I hear, but his music's not crazy. It's balanced, it's nimble, it's crystalline clear. There's harmony, logic. You listen to these. You don't hear his doubts or his deaths or disease. You can scan through the score and put fingers on keys and you play. And everything else goes away. Everything else goes away. Everything else from next to normal. My favorite confessional poet is Anne Sexton, who committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning at age 45. A book of her poetry published posthumously featured her therapist.
I have words for you, Dr. Y. Words for sale. Words that have been hoarded up, waiting for the pleasure act of coming out. Hugger mugger, higgly piggly, onto the stage. When I was in kindergarten, a boy hit me in the forehead with a toy truck during playtime because I asked to play with him. I sat in the corner and cried. Eventually, the teacher called me over. "What's wrong?" she asked me. "I don't have any friends," I replied, sniffling. The teacher called all of the kids to the front of the classroom and asked them to raise their hands if they were my friend. Everybody raised their hands. I don't know why, but this was probably the moment that I became crazy. Or maybe I was crazy all along. She laughed when I told her this story. She said it was incredibly sad and funny. I'm glad she saw how funny it was. Then she asked me, "Have you ever written about this?" Eunoia is a dated term for mental health. Literally, it means beautiful thinking. However, some of the most beautiful thinking has been done by people with mental illness. Consider the incredible artistic achievements of people like Vincent van Gogh, Virginia Woolf, and Sylvia Plath. And if you look for mental illness in artists, writers, poets, musicians, the list goes on. We were running about Whole Foods. I say running because she kept forgetting things on her list and going back. We probably circled around the store 3 or 4 times, picking up various items along the way. She was in constant motion, couldn't stand in one place. Got excited over a jug of coffee. Perhaps she didn't even notice, but I did. A slight fidget, balancing on one foot at the cash register. We looked at the things she'd ended up buying and laughed, talking constantly. I am attuned to these kinds of things. She had told me, though, that she felt manic. I wish I felt as manic as she did, but I was not. Rather, I was plagued by a familiar moroseness, a heaviness. Asked about JS, I mused, "Well, I think you'd win a fight with her." A few months after the breakup with JS, I fucked a fashion designer from the city. He was kind of cute, dyed hair, and a stutter. He slept in my bed with his arm around my waist. I slept uneasily. In my dream, I saw JS. It was the first time in a while I'd seen her face in my dreams. I don't remember what she said, but I woke up all at once, warm and shivering, cold sweat dripping from my forehead. I snuck out from the boy's grasp and went into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. Looking into the mirror, I thought how strange it was. I started to cry. He gave me his shirt afterwards. I don't usually see people's faces in my dreams. I rarely ever learn a person's face. This is a condition known as congenital prosopagnosia. In fact, I only come to individualize the faces of people I'm in love with. When I told her this, she said it was very romantic. I did not tell her that I had come to know her face. There is a thing known as a flow state, when words come out of your brain like blood seeping from a tapped vein, an insatiable passion for the task at hand. Manics often get into flow states. The world is poetry, you breathe it like air. Maybe this is part of why we are so successful in art. Love is also like a flow state. She's a doctoral student in the psychology department, but she told me that she used to write as if seized by a certain fervor for it, for the language, for poetry. I imagine Van Gogh and his passion for painting, his insatiable hunger. I thought I wanted to kiss those lips stained with yellow paint. Yellow, the color of the edges of a street, the boundaries of a self crossed like two neurons, the actualization of a synesthetic dream. To imbibe it is to take all of that in, the passion, life thrust under your tongue. I wanted that. When I was a child, I sat by myself at recess. The teachers saw that I was always alone. They gave me chalk to draw on the sidewalk. My hands dusted with pastel yellow, I would watch the other kids play. It's not easy for me to admit, but I hated them. I truly hated them. My heart was so full of hate that I couldn't bear to watch them anymore, and I would go to the bathroom and cry. I've never been a good person. Sadness is a part of the human condition, said one of my writing professors, a woman who perpetually seemed rather flummoxed by the world. Without it, you'd be a monster. I wanted to ask, with sadness, am I not a monster? For me, it was different. I, too, was seized by passions, but they occurred for me in successions, a pattern sometimes disapprovingly called serial monogamy. I was like that with my writing, too, but when I was engrossed in the page or lost in her eyes, everything but the space between my canvas and I disappeared. Everything else goes away. I wrote constantly when I was in love with JS. Everything I felt was transferred to the page. She was my muse. She was the gasoline to the fire behind my eyes. K. Redfield Jameson wrote an entire book about the connections between mental illness, particularly bipolar disorder, and artistic talent. It's called Touched with Fire. My heart has holes in it. They've been there for a long time. Before JS, I'm sure. But maybe I could have ignored them before that. Not anymore. I wanted to patch them up, fill them with cement, or gorilla glue the pieces back together and pretend that it was the same as it was before. A clean canvas, a blank page, a fresh start. But it's never been the same. I've always been different from other people. Maybe that is why I write, to escape the sadness of being alone, the desolation, the emptiness, the misery of a life condemned to this certain loneliness. Sometimes I try to fill the holes with other people's loneliness. It never works. I knew right away that she wouldn't be a suitable shape to fit there, like a square peg in the round hole of what I really needed. I was filled with this dread of knowing, but when I looked at her, I would forget. Everything else goes away. I was 10 years old when I first decided I was going to kill myself. I wanted to slice off my arm with an old circular saw patched with rust and die in a pool of blood on the hard cement floor of my garage. I daydreamed about it, wondered endlessly what it would be like to die there, cold and alone, and smeared with bright red, a baptism in blood. It was Anne Sexton's therapist, Dr. Martin Orne, who encouraged her to write poetry. Perhaps he thought that poetry would be a form of healing, a way to expel her demons through the pen, exorcism in the act of creation. Put your ear down close to the soul and listen hard, she said. I am a collection of dismantled almosts, she said. Suicide is, after all, the opposite of the poem. But suicides have a special language. Like carpenters, they want to know which tools. They never ask, why build? Lithium is like an emotional straitjacket, or at least like wearing a shirt that's too tight. You can't breathe. You can't feel the way you felt before. Not manic or depressed or happy or sad or anything. You wonder if you can even write. I didn't write for months after I started taking it. She told me she feels sadness only fleetingly. We're opposites, I guess, two sides of the same coin. I live in a state of melancholy permeated briefly by manic interludes. But I wonder if mania is really like happiness. Or is it like a saccharine substitute for happiness, itself almost a deeper form of sadness? I remember hanging upside down on one of the hospital couches and pacing up and down the long hallway, smiling cheerfully at anybody I passed along the way. The doctor informed me point blank that I was manic. I'm happy, I said. There's nothing to be happy about, she told me. Although the official diagnostic term was changed to bipolar disorder in the DSM-4, maybe this is why some people identify more with the older term, manic depression. Vincent van Gogh's stay at the Little Yellow House in Arles, France, from February 1888 until he was committed to the Saint Remy Asylum in 1889, was arguably the most prolific period of his entire career as a painter. He believed that the growing disruption of his inner chaos stirred within him this compulsive creativity. The more I am spent, ill, a broken pitcher, by so much more I am an artist. A kind of melancholy remains within us when we think that one could have created life at less cost than creating art. His time in Arles culminated in an episode wherein he cut off a portion of his left ear and attempted to give it to a prostitute as a gift, requesting she keep this object like a treasure. Perhaps in the end this is the ultimate display of love. To give a piece of oneself to the other. To be something more than a memory, something tangible, something real. It's a distinctly human error, this drive to be treasured. I was sitting across my kitchen table from her. She was wearing my pajama pants and my sweatshirt, an oversized blue one that falls in folds around her thin wrists. I thought it looked better on her than it did on me. She had a deep look of consternation as she studied. I was quiet. I was watching her mannerisms, an absent-minded gesture of her fingers as she stared into the screen. The harshly azurious light of her laptop illuminated a sharpness in her almost perfectly symmetrical face. A ubiquitously beautiful face. Perhaps it is not simply that the artistic temperament comes in tandem with emotional pitfalls, but that inner turmoil fuels the creation of art. If Van Gogh had not been crazy, would he have painted at all? Perhaps, like his brother Theo, he would have settled to be an art dealer, and never dirtied his hands with the business of creation. Do you ever feel like I do, that you know a lot of people, but you're still very lonely? But sometimes, maybe when the stars align quite right, I meet someone that sees me, that looks at me like I'm not invisible. She came up to me in the courtyard one day, a small green space in between the psychology buildings that's mostly overgrown with ivy and shrubs. I was pacing back and forth, taking long drags and blowing smoke into the October sky. She asked me to bum a cigarette, and smiled and said, "I've seen you out here. You have a very thoughtful walk." "You always say the right thing, Elliot. You toss out aphorisms like you're handing out daisies," she said. Aphorism. either a pithy observation that contains a general truth or a concise statement of a scientific principle. And you know it's just a sonata away, and you play and you play, and everything else goes away. Everything else goes away. Everything else goes away. She says she finds solace in her loneliness. I wonder if I could ever come to view things the same way. I've been alone for a long time, since my childhood. It wasn't a tragic childhood, but it was solitary. For my whole life, I've wanted to find whatever it is that breaks down this invisible wall that divides us, that brings the fragments of people together into one, into a mosaic of shared humanity that I've never quite fit into. I feel like I can tell you anything, she said. You're very understanding. I feel like you understand me. I smiled sadly. Is talking easily about something the same thing as healing a wound? About her family, about foster care, about the scar on her thigh. She gave a small laugh like it wasn't really a big deal. It's not my place to say something like, "Are you really okay?" No. I couldn't heal her. She couldn't heal me. I just wanted to listen, to understand you in the way I have never been understood. That's why I write. Balanced there, suicides sometimes meet, raging at the fruit, a pumped up moon, leaving the bread they mistook for a kiss. I thought to call JS. It rang only twice. I knew she'd blocked my number months ago. I wanted to say, but I was always there for you. I wanted to say, but I loved you. I wanted to say, but I need you. I need you. I need you. Please. 2 rings. Silence. Leaving the page of the book carelessly open. Something unsaid. The phone off the hook and the love, whatever it was, an infection. She told me about enneagrams, a theoretical model of personality. She told me that I was a type 4, the individualist, which she qualified as the suffering artist. Expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, temperamental. In love chiefly with my sadness. I wanted to say, and you are not? I've changed, she says. But why are you still here? We read Maggie Nelson's Bluets. Her voice grew incredibly impassioned as she read aloud. I say something about how clinical psychology forces everything we love into the pathological, or the delusional, or the biologically explicable, that if what I was feeling wasn't love, then I'm forced to admit that I don't know what love is, or, more simply, that I loved a bad man. Sometimes I would wait in the spot where JS and I would always meet together before class, as if she'd appear there again if I waited long enough. She never did. I found myself there, cold, alone, staring at the sky in its seemingly infinite vastness. Eventually, I stopped waiting. I want to write again, she told me one day, sitting outside the front of her house, smoking a cigarette. The smoke drifted into the gray sky and faded like the unintelligible, inexplicable fragment of a dream upon waking. You should, I said. It was the best healing I knew of. Well, that's it. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Zaps, and I hope you'll tune in to the next episode as well.